Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is on a two-day official visit to India, accompanied by a delegation of European Union College of Commissioners. Now, this is the first ever visit of the EU College of Commissioners together to India, and among the first such visits since the start of the mandate of the current European Commission in December 2024, after the European parliamentary elections held in June 2024. For European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, this visit marks her third one to India. She's earlier visited India for a bilateral official visit in April 2022 and then to attend the G20 Leaders Summit in September 2023. Prime Minister Narendra Modi warmly welcomed her and the EU College of Commissioners at the Hyderabad House on Friday. The extensive discussions that followed between the leaders aimed at further strengthening the India-EU strategic partnership. So we'll analyze the big takeaways, the progress on the India-EU free trade agreement, and how both sides are paving the way for further strengthening relations based on growing convergences. For this, I am pleased to welcome on the broadcast two distinguished guests, Dr. Sheetal Sharma, Centre for European Studies, School of International Studies. Ma'am, thank you very much for your time. Welcome to the program. Also joining us is former Ambassador Virendra Gupta. Ambassador, delighted to have you with us on this broadcast as well. But before we begin talking about the significance of the visit of the European Commission President to India, here's a quick listen in to what the Prime Minister said after the extensive discussion he had with her.
Trade, technology, investment, innovation, green growth, सिक्योरिटी, स्किलिंग और मोबिलिटी पर सहयोग का एक ब्लूप्रिंट तैयार किया गया है। हमने अपनी टीम्स को एक पारस्परिक लाभकारी बायलैटरल फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट को, एफटीए को इस वर्ष के अंत तक संपन्न करने का निर्देश दिया है। फ्रेंड्स, इन्वेस्टमेंट फ्रेमवर्क मजबूत करने के लिए इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रोटेक्शन और जीआई एग्रीमेंट पर भी आगे बढ़ने की बात हुई है। टेक्नोलॉजी और इनोवेशन के क्षेत्र में एक ट्रस्टेड और सिक्योर वैल्यू चेन हमारी साझी प्राथमिकता है। सेमीकंडक्टर, एआई, हाई परफॉर्मेंस कंप्यूटिंग और 6G में सहयोग बढ़ाने पर भी सहमति बनी है। हमने एक स्पेस डायलॉग शुरू करने का निर्णय भी लिया है। फ्रेंड्स, इकोलॉजी और इकोनॉमी का बैलेंस हमारी साझी प्रतिबद्धता रही है और इस दिशा में हमारा मजबूत सहयोग रहा है। हमने ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन फोरम और ऑफशोर विंड एनर्जी बिजनेस समिट करने का निर्णय लिया है। ईवी बैटरीज, मरीन प्लास्टिक्स और ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन में जॉइंट रिसर्च किया जाएगा। साथ ही सस्टेनेबल अर्बन डेवलपमेंट पर हम अपने जॉइंट प्लान को आगे बढ़ाएंगे। कनेक्टिविटी के क्षेत्र में इंडिया, मिडिल ईस्ट, यूरोप इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर यानी आईमेक, उसे आगे ले जाने के लिए ठोस कदम उठाए जाएंगे।
So we'll be talking about the host of agreements and measures which the Prime Minister spoke about in this joint presser on how to strengthen the India-EU strategic partnership. But Ambassador, let me begin the program with your thoughts on the significance attached to this visit, considering it's her third one to India and she's being accompanied by a college of EU commissioners, which is also the first ever. They're all visiting India together.
I think it's a very important visit, and all the right boxes have been ticked. Firstly, it is a full delegation visit. Majority of the EU commissioners are on the delegation. And given the fact that there is a considerable importance that India attaches to this relationship. This is a very big relationship for us. If you look at it from the point of view of trade and investment, I think the figures speak for themselves. Huge amount of trade, almost $140 billion trade. And unlike China, this trade, we have a slight surplus in India's favor. European Union also, as you know, plays an extremely important role in geopolitics. And I think I regard the President of EU Commission's statement that she would like to enhance security and defense relationship to build a truly strategic relationship with India very significant, particularly given the fact that India has very special relationship with Russia, and India's views on Russia-Ukraine conflicts are not entirely in agreement with what European Union perceives. So I think given these two very important factors, if European Union President is soliciting a strategic relationship, a security construct with India, I think that is extremely significant.
Sure, we'll talk further about how we can explore and enhance this strategic and defense partnership that the President of the European Commission spoke about. But coming to trade first, and Dr. Sharma, your thoughts on the trade agreement that has been under negotiation for a decade and a half. The fact that EU is India's largest trading partner, our bilateral trade over the last decade has increased by 90% or so as the numbers speak. But when it comes to the FTA, we've still not been able to get a breakthrough. This is something that the European Commission President did speak about. She said she's hopeful that India and the EU will wrap up this deal by the end of the year. How hopeful are you?
Tina, first of all, a couple of indicators that mark that this deal is going to be almost finalized by year end, because number one, look at the amount of energy that has been infused in this relationship. When you read all the interviews of the president prior to her visit to India, along with the delegation of 22 commissioners, with her representing all the important areas out of 27 of the European Union, it indicates something. The strength, the numbers indicate something, and this is a kind of she had been saying that for a long period of time there was this lackluster relationship, the warmth, the energy was not there despite the motivation being there. But suddenly the things have changed. The things have changed because of a couple of geopolitical reasons, and one primarily being Trump 2 administration sending massive shockwaves all across the world. But despite the divergences of all the ideas related to Ukraine war, Russia, US, or anything else, now EU actually is looking for a partnership with India. And over last 20 years, since 2004, when we had a strategic partnership, now 20 years over the next year, that too the roadmap 2025 is coming to an end. There is a kind of motivation and intention towards enhancing this relationship to the next level. Now, there are geopolitical reasons for it, but the prime reason is that if you, from India's perspective, I would say, if you negotiate deal with the European Union, you are primarily targeting 27 countries altogether. And this operates at two levels. One is at the member state level, and the other one is the consolidated union level. So there is a kind of enhanced and strengthening of partnership with the continent in totality. Because one, we have all bilateral good relations with all the member states, the major ones, like Germany, France, Spain, Italy, and that too, European Union's, the one which exited European Union, UK as well. So all the big member states, along with the countries of the Central and Eastern European countries, the bilaterals are good. But at the same time, if in case we are striking the FTA with EU's economy is $19.5 trillion economy. So that's massive among the top 3 economies of the world. So this has a lot of potential. Now they have intention. Now it is a kind of situation in which there is no need to waste time, as the president herself said that, for a long we have not focused upon this, but it's the ripe time. There's no time to waste now in moving towards convergence of idea and seeing most of the, smaller hurdles through. So I think it's going to be done. Although, of course, there are certain issues on which a more greater dialogue and in-depth discussion is required, but it would be certainly culminated.
Okay. Ambassador, especially, against the backdrop of the statement made by US President Donald Trump to impose tariffs, 25% tariffs on goods made in the EU, do you think the EU is now making fresh efforts to expedite the FTA with India? And how is it going to be mutually beneficial for both sides? And especially because this is something which has been in the talks for a decade and a half. It was stalled midway. Then the negotiations started again in 2022. So give us a backdrop of how these talks have, fared all this while. And now the fresh impetus that we see in the efforts to seal the deal.
Well, Trump's rantings and the threat of imposing tariffs across the spectrum. European Union, he's threatened India also. So I think this has given a new impetus to various group of countries to begin looking for diversification. It is very clear that European Union would also have to look at reducing its dependence on America. So I think that makes the imperative for finding new partners. And I think India, given the liberal political atmosphere, India's emergence, I drew attention that India may not be entirely synchronous with them on political views, and yet India is being sought after. So I think that is indicative of new trends. Emergence of India on the global scene. So I'm sure that with Trump going around with his threats, this will give fresh impetus to European Union and India. There have been issues. I think one of the reasons that we have very high tariff on some of the goods of interest to European Union, which they have flagged. They will want us to reduce imports on wines. There is a Trump factor again, the cars, because Musk has already indicated that he might be wanting to import vehicles from Germany to Indian market, not from China. So I think that again, they'll have to find a way of getting those vehicles at a slightly lower, duty structure. So there are these factors which will have to be gone into. Technology is another area. In fact, a lot of new technology areas have been talked about. It is also said that European Union and India want to take that relationship to a level which India already has with UK and US. So I think there are good tidings. And given the political will, what happens? The negotiations remain stalled because the officials who are charged with the responsibility of negotiating trade deals stick to their optimal positions, maximalist positions. Now, unless there is a political direction, and I think we see clear indication of political directions here, European Union President has expressed a hope that the agreement would be wrapped up by the end of the year. Prime Minister Modi has been, in fact, even more emphatic. He has very clearly stated that he has given directions to the negotiating team to wrap it up before the end of the year. So I'm very hopeful that this will be all done by the end of the year.
Absolutely. So let's wait and see how the negotiations progress next month. But and technology partnership again, the kind of importance that it has assumed in recent years, the kind of partnership we are looking to strengthen with the EU is something that we will discuss in the course of the program. But from trade, let's first now talk about defense and strategic partnership, something that the ambassador spoke about, and a very significant statement again in that area coming in from the President of the European Commission, Dr. Sharma. She says India and Europe should reimagine their partnership in an era of great power competition, global geopolitical headwinds, and she's clearly said that defense and strategic partnership is one area in which both India and the EU can not just explore but expand their cooperation. Help us and our viewers understand the kind of defense partnership that India can build with this European bloc. And how is it going to help us, especially at a time when we are trying to diversify our defense interests?
Tina, interestingly, three areas have been identified by the president. One is the trade and technology. The second one is the security and the defense. The third one being connectivity and global partnership. Now, in one way, these are three different but yet connected, interconnected areas as I perceive them to be. Because it's trade, technology, even in the field of security and defense and global partnerships and connectivities are all interlinked. But particularly talking about security and defense, which has become very significant now, given the tremors the geopolitical conditions are now facing.
Right.
Why this is happening now? Because for a long period of time, Europe was, was feeling secure because of the transatlantic partnership under the framework of NATO. But suddenly there are jolts now, and given the kind of, in Trump won, the previous administration of Donald Trump, there were kind of indications that he is not much interested in pursuing with the future of NATO and all that, and he was forcing the European countries to enhance their defense budget. But at the same time, this ended with his, somehow kind of not paying too much of attention to the transatlantic partnership. Trump too, within the first month itself, he has indicated that he is not interested in continuing with the framework, and this has left a kind of, the entire continent or the people under the security umbrella of NATO kind of exposed. Exposure would have been not that dangerous if he had not shown a kind of, lenient attitude towards Russia. So bringing, Russia into the fold, but that could be a strategic move to counterbalance China. Otherwise Russia would have leaned towards China. There are various possibility permutations and combinations within that. But the moral lesson that the Europeans have drawn from the situation is that they no longer can rely on transatlantic partnership. Say, for example, the last 3 weeks, so much has changed. And suddenly they know that they have to rebuild their security, they have to remilitarize themselves and enhance their defense and strategic partnership with the people who are like-minded countries all across the world. Now, when I look at the European Union, there are two member states of the UN Security Council. These two states are the nuclear states. Finland has a very strong military and the kind of infrastructure that is required for enhanced military setups and all that. Individual member states are quite capable. It is just a matter of time that Europe consolidates its military, its power in order to have a strong security and defense mechanism. And in the process, they are also looking forward to enhance their relationship with countries which are like-minded and share the similar set of principles and values, which is India. And that is why trusted partnership, reliable partner, reliability, trust, these words echo time and again. And India at the same time is also, enhancing its defense budget, it's modernizing its defense and looking for weapons and diversifying and, reducing its reliance on one particular exporter of military weapons to India. In that case, European Union and individual member states have a significant role to play. And then within the broad EU framework also and with individual, I time and again bat at the two levels, member states at the same time EU. But the difference in the two is that bilaterals happen at the national level. At the EU level, things take a time. That is why the FTA also has been dragging for a long period of time because of certain hurdles. But at the same time, ratification by individual member states and acceptance and all those bureaucratic hurdles are there at their end also. So yes, of course, the time is ripe for both the entities to come up and talk about security and defense also, which is then connected to the third main pillar of connectivity and global partnership because of South China Sea, Indo-Pacific and all other things which I think hold a lot of significance in the modern times.
Ambassador, your perspective on what is EU's interest in stepping up defense and strategic partnership with India?
Everybody and anybody wants to sell military hardware, defense equipment to India. And India, mind you, has already been buying from Europe. Sweden, France, Italy, all these countries have been supplying. These matters would obviously be, as Cheetal said, dealt with bilaterally. But European Union sometimes bats for issues which they can deal directly, and also bats for issues which are of interest to the constituents. So I think it probably fits into that. Apart from the desire of European Union countries to sell more defense equipment to India, There is obviously an element of higher level of cooperation in intelligence sharing, counter terrorism, training, military training, peacekeeping operations. India, as you know, is one of the largest constituents of the peacekeeping operations of the United Nations, and European Union also takes a great degree of interest in it. So I think there are so many different areas. India also has emerged as a major supplier of not the hardware defense, but the software issues, uniforms, and little something here and there, shoes, etc. So there is a lot of cooperation between India. India, for its part, of course, would always welcome enhanced intelligence cooperation with countries which are important to it. I would also like to add a point here that India already has a huge defense cooperation with France. And I think France is an important constituent of European Union. In fact, France is the country which mostly is rated as the country with the highest level of a strategic congruence with India. So I think these factors have to be taken into account.
Dr. Sharma, the third aspect that you spoke about, the connectivity partnership. Tell us about the kind of progress we've made on the IMEC. This is something that was announced on the sidelines of the G20, something which was welcomed by countries in the European Union. But how have we taken it from there? And what is the kind of interest that both sides have shown to making advancements in this kind of corridor?
Tina, once again, connectivity and global partnerships are to be seen in the backdrop of the first two pillars, only trade, technology, security and defense. And the connectivity issues are very important once again if we tie them to the geopolitical context. These are the kind of initiatives in which we particularly connect those countries or the regions which have been landlocked or the access to the countries or the interior areas. If you look at the Belt and Road initiatives of China, there was a kind of impetus or an attempt to connect the countries all across for trade reasons and for the security reasons. Although of course China always has a kind of intention behind connecting the countries and regions for some other purposes also. Now, not going into that, but yes, of course, the connectivity which is going to have access to the countries in the Central and Eastern European countries particularly. And why these regions are important for us? Because with the Western countries of the European continent, we already have good connectivity because of the sea route links and other things. But at the same time, if the internal, which cuts the time of transportation, access to these areas, greater trade, greater business. At the same time, the other connectivity issues and global partnership lies in the Indo-Pacific. And Indo-Pacific, although of course European Union, complete union is not a resident power of the Indo-Pacific other than France. But at the same time, they have a lot of stakes in Indo-Pacific because the region is, the volume of the trade with the region is very high. So that is why European Union is quite interested in its, the third pillar of connectivity and a global partnership. One is that they believe in the rule-based order. And the kind of the cues that they are getting now from the US, say for example, if there are greater tremors on this side, this is going to set a bad example or a different kind of precedence for our neighbors as well. Say for example, China, and already seeing China trying to impose itself in the Indo-Pacific region. So that is why it is very important that we keep on emphasizing upon the rule-based order. We keep on emphasizing upon territorial sovereignty of the countries. We do not interfere with the internal matters of the constituent countries of the Pacific region, and at the same time have the limits of exercise of power and hegemony in the region. So that is why it is very important. You must have we all have heard what Prime Minister and the President were saying, that there is a kind of respect for peace, global order. Repeatedly these terms are coming up again and again, which is about reliability, which is about peace, which is about trust. And this is where collaboration and cooperation, as the President was saying, that we are looking for collaboration and cooperation no matter which area it is. So I believe that the progress on this has to go on a higher scale, in a higher momentum, in the backdrop of the geopolitical changes that are happening, and this would certainly be seen through.
Okay, Ambassador, I'll take one last question on the people-to-people ties. This, of course, comes up as a significant pillar when we talk about the India-EU partnership, because it's one of the strong foundations of the relationship that we have with the European Union, and especially because the growing Indian diaspora, which comprises of students, researchers, skilled professionals, and so on. How have we strengthened our people-to-people ties, and how are we moving towards making it the most strong pillar of India-EU relationship, something that we enjoy with the United States, where the Indian diaspora has a significant voice and which has become a bedrock of our relationship?
Well, diaspora has played an important role. A very sizable diaspora in Germany, in Netherlands, France, and many other countries. And we don't have to make it a very strong pillar. It is a strong pillar by itself. It has the soft level of connectivity. I think one of the reasons is that the diaspora is generally very hardworking, very sincere, and in their contribution to the socio-economic development of those countries. So I think the Indian diaspora has come to be highly respected in most countries where they are. And I think that really enhances the goodwill and the image of India in these countries. We are looking for good times between India and European Union. I think there has to be one caution, however, that sometimes I find that Europeans tend to become a little bit prescriptive and lecture us about our human rights records and that sort of thing. I think they got to be a little more discreet and show greater understanding for our plurality, for how we are managing our multiculturalism. And I think we are doing it fairly well. They have to apply globalist standards, look at us from the perspective of what other countries are. And I think if they were to do it, they would find that India's record is probably much better than all other countries, I would say. So I think if they were to adopt that yardstick, they would have removed the only remaining irritant in the relationship between India and European Union.
Absolutely. And if they see India as the critical partner, they need to know India in a much more diverse and much more expanded way if they are to enhance cooperation at various levels, including the people-to-people ties. Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you, Dr. Sharma, for joining us on this broadcast, sharing your thoughts with us and our viewers. We'll have to wrap up the program. Time allows me to take up only that much on this edition of Perspective. Thank you very much, viewers, to you as well for your time.
संसद टीवी के और भी प्रोग्राम्स देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें हमारा YouTube चैनल और हाँ, इन्हें लाइक और शेयर करना ना भूलें।